we're we're gonna talk about there's in
Compensation after exoneration.
yeah, we talked about an episode early on where there were two guys that were in Louisiana. They spent 30 and 36 years wrongfully convicted. They got out. One of them was the state refused to pay,
Mm-hmm.
and he was fighting that until his death. He died of
Yep.
cancer.
Yep.
The other guy, I think he got like a small amount
Very
of
small.
money,
Correct.
and that he gave up 30 something years of his life. So
Right.
apparently in Maryland,
There is no formal vehicle for compensation after you're exonerated from a conviction. And in particular, what brings this up, several weeks ago, 3 black men were actually exonerated and freed after they had spent 36 years in prison in the state of Maryland. I believe it was Baltimore, for murder. So, and what's worse about this is these young men, 2 of them were 16, the other was 17, spent 36 years of their lives in this prison for killing someone. And how they got exonerated was because that was so, like, I, I, I want to say it was through the Innocence Project, but I could be wrong. But it was through something like the Innocence Project. And they found so much exculpatory evidence. And in case y'all don't know what exculpatory evidence
that's
is,
evidence that wasn't submitted during trial.
it's evidence that will clear you of the crime.
Okay.
Not necessarily not submitted. There was exculpatory evidence, and as a rule of law, if you are the prosecution and you find exculpatory evidence, you have to turn it over to the defense. They never turned it over.
Ooh.
So literally, these 3 young men in 1983 on Thanksgiving morning woke up to their doors being busted in by the police. And they were taken. They were questioned. And later they were convicted of this crime. And the crazy part about it is they were convicted of murdering this other young man for a jacket. You remember back in the day,
Starter jacket.
y'all had these started. Well, he had a Georgetown jacket.
Mm.
And there were witnesses that came forth that said that they saw these young men, well, one of the young men with the jacket after the murder. Big piece of evidence that convicted them was a Georgetown jacket that one of the young men had. But that particular jacket didn't have any blood on it, did not have any gunshot residue, nothing. And the young man's mother.
Real quick. So they shot the person who they took the jacket from. They shot that person.
Right. Supposedly.
So there would be some kind of bullet hole or
exactly,
something in the jacket. Okay.
Exactly. No blood, no gunshot residue. Young man's mother, whose home they found the jacket in, had a receipt for the jacket. The place where she purchased it from, the sales lady testified that the lady had purchased the jacket shortly before then, yet they had eyewitnesses who said they were the ones. These 3 young men, they were in high school, but they had like skipped class to go back to their middle school to talk to some, hang out, talk to some teachers. What high school students, they do it all the time. And this is what happened. So fast forward 36 years. One of the young men, he constantly was fighting to get hold to the whole police file. And he was constantly in contact with lawyers from like the Innocence Project and other organizations like that. And eventually they get this file and they look through it and they find all this evidence that was never given to the defendants. So they get out. All right. They got out. What's crazy is in that same file that they received, there was someone else who actually confessed to it. And that person was seen leaving the scene of the crime in a jacket like
Georgetown jacket, yeah.
And so all of this, like I said, these young men spent 36 years of their lives. They are in their early 50s now, have most of their lives taken away from them, and the state of Maryland has no formal vehicle to compensate them for that wrongful conviction. And they were convicted because of I'm not even going to say negligence, because this wasn't negligence. This was something that was deliberate. These prosecutors knew that they had this evidence, but they did not obey the law. They did not turn it over to the defendants. All right, fast forward, that prosecutor will not be brought to justice because they have since died. The lead detective on the case can't be located. So, I mean,
how the fuck can he not be located?
Can't be located. But 36, like I said, 36 years down the line, most of the people involved in this case.
So, have they gone to look at other cases that this prosecutor had and to see if there was any other evidence that was withheld?
That? Yeah. Well, I don't know if they have, but the guy, let's see which one, because there were 3 of them. The guy who actually was the impetus for all this, the one that would not give up, who was doing all of this, he literally said that there are so many people like them still in jail, and he's planning on continuing the fight for these people. The worst thing, something else, it reading this story and just like looking at all the little different facets of it brought back something from an episode that we did. Remember, we did an episode and you asked a question about the legalities of the cops speaking to underage people.
Yep.
Well, in the state of Maryland, there is not a law against it either. So, in the files that they had, it's crazy though that people actually wrote all this stuff and they had all this evidence in it. When they interviewed the eyewitnesses, who were all underage, they did it without parental permission, and they did it without parents in the room. They did it in a group, and supposedly the lead detectives told them all, get y'all story straight. You know, and
so it was, what do you call that again? Not, is that coercion?
Yeah, I would call it coercion. I would call it coerced, because after the fact, every last eyewitness recanted. That was also in the file. Like, they all went back and recanted their statements, but that was never given to anybody either.
See, and that's that bullshit there. Well, let me ask you this. Prosecution, wrongful prosecution, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, what's the general, I guess, disciplinary act for wrongful prosecution?
There are statutes that basically compensate you. That's the thing.
But what about the actual prosecutor themselves?
They can actually be charged with crimes. You know, prosecutorial misconduct. They can be charged with that. You know, of course, lose their job. You can also be charged with a crime. But in the situation where you have police officers, they have to go through a whole IAD situation.
Well,
They have to have the investigation, and then they too can be prosecuted if they, malfeasance in office. You can be prosecuted for that, but that doesn't compensate you for these young men. 36 years of my life that I lost, and then you get out, and Maryland does not have
that's
anything in the law that would formally allow you to compensate me for that.
Can they sue the state civilly?
They can
They
sue the
can-
prosecutor
they
and
could- They could try to sue the state, but governmental units have a certain immunity.
exactly, and that's why I'm always saying you can't sue the government. And you always say you can't sue the government.
You can
But
sue. You can sue, but like I said, you can sue anybody. But
how about this? Can you sue eyewitness for false eyewitness testimony?
I would say that
And when I say can you sue, is it viable?
I could try. You could try to make a case that it was defamatory,
Like
I
slander
can-
and
right?
Mhm.
I can see you trying to do that, but all these things have statutes of limitations.
Yeah.
So for them, it's over with. But like I said, and just to give you a little breakdown of this, there are 17 states that do not have laws that will compensate somebody if they are wrongfully accused. Well, if they are wrongfully convicted and then exonerated.
Let me guess the states here. Do you have them? Do you have them up? Because
Hold up.
I'm pretty sure.
Wait. Because I have the ones that do actually compensate.
So I'm just gonna assume that on that list, Maryland's not on that list.
Of course.
Let's take Tennessee off of that list.
All right, let's see. Hold that. See if you're right. Da-da-da-da-da. Da-da. Tennessee does compensate.
Alabama
does compensate.
Huh. Interesting.
Mhm.
I'm gonna say Wisconsin is not on that
Speak up
list.
some.
I'm gonna say Wisconsin's not on that list.
Da-na-na-na-na-na.
So we're going.
Wisconsin does compensate.
Okay. This has got to be it. Michigan.
Michigan does compensate.
Man. So, yeah, we need to know what the states are then. Because I'm thinking, I was either southern states or.
Now, honestly, there are some though that that have these statutes for compensation. But here's the crazy thing. If you plead guilty and then you are later exonerated.
That's not the same as being found guilty.
Right.
Okay.
But if you plead guilty and you're later exonerated, you cannot seek compensation. Which is stupid because how many of us Black and brown people actually are told to plead guilty by our legal counsel so that we can get lesser time?
Less time, yeah. And that's something else too. I mean, since I'm asking questions around the room, I want to start with you, Becky. Okay, you get charged with a crime you didn't do. You take it to trial, you're facing 10 years, okay? Or you plead down, you plead guilty, and you do 6 months with another 2 years probation. What would you do?
I mean, lesser time sounds great. I said lesser time sounds great.
It does sound great.
Yeah. I think I would have to consider my family situation if I was because life doesn't stop when you're when you're in jail.
How do you know? You've been there before?
I visited jails.
Oh, have you?
Mhm.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere. What jails you visit?
It was a Civil War jail.
My nigga.
Wait, no,
My
that girl
nigga.
didn't say a Civil War jail.
Yeah.
Come get on camera. I'm gonna need you stand in front of one of these cameras, please.
No,
Well,
thank
if
you.
that's the case, I visited jail too.
Mhm.
I visited Alcatraz.
Mhm.
I still want to go there. Isn't that where Al Capone died?
Yeah,
Yeah, I want to go there.
I love Alcatraz. Honestly,
Yeah. So,
It looks
like,
dope.
like I said, like I was saying, I would probably take into consideration my current situation if I was.
Taking
well,
into
look,
consideration my
your
current situation.
yeah, because all right,
Is it a lituation?
no
Okay.
situation, but like if I was a single mom, or if and I had no other,
and you just need to be out for your kids.
yeah,
See, and that honestly, since we are talking about the law and we like to focus on things that affect or largely affects Black and brown people and other people of color. Think about that. And we've talked about that on shows. We can't afford high dollar lawyers. And most often than not, we are the single source of provision for our families. So if we had the choice of pleading guilty, getting a slap on the wrist, and getting out so that we can care for our children.
See, and what's so fucked up though is the things that you don't think about at the time. And much like, okay, we were talking about Black and brown people, we already know about the wealth disparities, but we think right now, because I know a lot of people like to say, think about the future, plan for your future, do this. A lot of us can't. We need to worry about right now, today.
Right. Because in the future, because tomorrow, if I don't go to work today,
yep,
tomorrow my lights might not get paid.
Exactly.
Tomorrow my rent might not get paid, and me and my family will be out on the streets. You're absolutely right. I agree with you.
Future. So you don't think about, when you plead, the future ramifications, which is now you have a criminal record.
Right.
Sure, you might not have done any time. You might have got a slap on the wrist, and you were able to stay. Okay, well, your job closes, or you need a new job. Now these days,
hard as hell for you to get one.
Exactly,
and you probably will not, because the minute that because everybody does background checks these
like
days.
It didn't used to be like that. Only certain industries like government,
even McDonald's,
banking,
do background checks.
I got a cousin who he's a felon. He got out. He was looking for a job, and he was checking the box on the applications. And I think there's some sort of bill or some sort of somebody, they want to get rid of that box, but he checked the box, so no one will hire him. So I straight up told him, I said, look, bro, don't check the box. If they run background checks, they'll catch it. If they don't, you'll at least be able to work for a little while until it catches up with you. I mean, it's not illegal to go work at McDonald's and
not say that you've been convicted before. Now, the thing is, honestly, since we are being honest, there are a lot of jobs that do not do background checks, even though you give them permission to do so.
Mm-hmm.
There are some that do not.
I can name one right now. I can name two, actually, and one's kind of scary. Truck drivers. They aren't required. I mean, I'm sure it depends on the company, but I have a friend who he just recently visited, but
bus drivers,
multiple felon bus drivers, okay.
School bus drivers.
Oh yeah, with that recent incident on the highway the other day.
Man, the school bus drivers down here in New Orleans, right? Because I like to talk about New Orleans, right? Yo, they had this one bus company, and he did not have insurance.
The bus had not passed inspection. he did not have a license, could not get one because of
his criminal record.
background.
Exactly.
Yet he was driving the
exactly. So, I mean, it's hard, but I would say, knowing what I know now today, if I did not do the crime, I'm sorry, I'm fighting it to the end, even if it's with a public defender, because I can't afford a top dollar lawyer. But catch me at 20, 21, 22, I would probably
need to
plead.
Be out.
Yeah.
But I could tell you what, that actually takes us back to the beginning with these three young men. The one who actually was doing all the fighting, getting all the paperwork, he could have been out of jail a long time ago. And the reason why he did not get out of jail is because at every parole hearing, the very first thing they want you to do is accept responsibility
Tell him
for
you're
your
sorry,
crime.
and yeah. Mm-hmm.
He refused to say he has gone in saying that he was innocent, and when he went before the parole board, he still maintained his innocence, and they kept denying him parole because he refused to say that he was guilty. And the man was like, I would never have said, he would have, if this had not happened, he would have died in jail because he refused to accept responsibility for a crime that he knows that he did not commit.
And I agree with that wholeheartedly. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the story of Reuben Carter.
Mm-mm.
Okay, he's there's a movie about him. Denzel played him, Hurricane Reuben Carter.
Yes, Hurricane.
Yeah, same situation. He
Exactly
refused.
Right.
But so local, going back to an episode, in the future we're gonna have an episode where Ann talks about her experiences in New Orleans as far as crime goes. But going back to an episode a couple weeks ago, last week as a matter of fact, when we were talking about some solutions to the problems with crime, one of the things that I said was more policing. Back home, I talk about how we had patrols. Like if you sat on your front porch, you would see the same police car, like 5, 6. A lot of our neighborhoods, I thought about this as I was saying it in after the fact. A lot of our neighborhoods become, it's almost, we're targeted because poor black people live here. So, police love to say we don't have quotas, we don't have bullshit, because your performance reviews are based on the number of arrests,
the number of people, the number of criminals that you've gotten off the street.
Pretty much. So it's almost like even with the stop and frisk in New York, you didn't see white men in suits that look like stockbrokers getting stopped and searched.
And frisked. Right.
Black dude, baggy clothes, or these days tight clothes. So
dreadlocks.
Yeah, I thought about it, and I'm like, it's almost like profiling. You profile these neighborhoods.
That's correct.
And you know that. So that's the one flaw, I guess, in my solution is adding more police to the neighborhood is a lot more innocent people being targeted for doing absolutely nothing. And we have this thing too where I saw this happen. I'm gonna find this clip and share it on social media somewhere in DC. So some guys are outside of a corner store, convenience store. They're sitting around talking. Guy walks up and he looks like just the rest of the dudes out there, no different. Walks up and leans against a gate. Nobody's acknowledged him. No one said anything to him. So these dudes are still out there kicking the shit or whatever, and they're videoing it because it's just like they're out there having fun and cracking jokes. Within seconds of the guy walking up and going to the gate, police roll up. And they jump out, and first person they grab is the guy that walks up and went to the gate. So they found a firearm on him.
So everybody got the charge.
No, the guy, they pulled the firearm out and they said, "Oh, okay, you got a gun. Now we're searching everybody." So if you're watching the video, you see the guy that they pulled the gun off of. Mind you, we're talking DC, strict gun laws. He just walks down the street and gets in the car, drives off. He was a plant from the police department.
So they basically wanted a reason to search the rest of the people
and inside the building. So then they go inside the building. But the whole time I'm watching this video, I'm hearing the way our youth, our people are talking to the police. They're meeting aggression with aggression and hostility.
Right.
And that's never a good thing because the police already feel like I have authority over you.
And you already feel, because I'm walking into the situation with a bunch of black men, even though I'm the police and I am the authority figure, they feel threatened.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They feel threatened. So it's like, I'm looking for a reason.
Yep. And
to be aggressive with you.
And that's exactly what it was. So that whole thing was a setup, and it turns out DC police, they're called MPD, I think. They've been doing that for years. They've been sending either informants or detectives into places to give them probable cause.
Right.
And that's just fucked up. So that's the flaw, I guess, in one of my things. But going back to these guys in Maryland, I think a lot of the times with these situations, I know people like to say it's not about the money, but it is, because you've taken 30 something years.
36 years.
You've taken majority of my life. That's majority of my life.
Absolutely.
If I live to be 70, you've taken half of my life.
Right.
I don't think there's any dollar amount
that's going to compensate.
Yeah.
No. But
and then the trauma from being in jail.
Right. And then, my thing though, yes, it is about the money. And no, there is no amount of money that can compensate me for 36 years of my life. But when I walk out of jail, I'm walking into absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I do have family. So if I did and do have family that supported me through these 36 years, sure, I am going to have somewhere to go. But I'm walking out of 36 years. I have no money. I have no car. I have no place that is mine to call my own. I have no job. I literally have nothing. But if you can compensate me in most of these things, like I know some of them, there is a limit. I think in the state of Louisiana, you can get up to $250,000.
That was 5.
That's the max. Hold up.
No, 5's for medical malpractice.
Let me see.
So while she looks that up.
So Louisiana has a max of $250,000.
Okay.
So $250,000 to me
for 36 years of your life
is nothing.
Do the math on that real quick. Yearly, 250 divided by 36.
That's like what?
8,000 a year, maybe.
6,000 something.
That is nuts.
You did it back?
$6,944.44.
So about $7,000 a year for
$7,000 a year.
Do me one more favor.
That's not even minimum wage.
Divide that by 52.
That's not even minimum wage, man.
So, I mean,
but you said it earlier. You cannot compensate me. You cannot compensate me, and that is literally happening every day, over and over and over and over again, to people of color, disproportionately.
And that calculates out to $133.55 per week.
Like
and it costs more to keep you in there than that.
Right.
Yeah.
Not even minimum wage. And we just wanted to bring this subject back up because of this. But like I said, this is something that we had talked about before. And when you think about the mass numbers of Black and brown people who are incarcerated in the United States right now, what percentage would you think are innocent?
I would go with high 30s.
I was thinking along the same lines.
Really?
Yeah.
Honestly, surprisingly, y'all would think, I actually think it's higher than that.
Could be.
Because you think about people just in the state of Louisiana. thinking about people who were convicted of crimes in the 60s, in the 70s.
Or
You know,
in the 80s, like the cases we looked at where we didn't have DNA evidence. We
exactly
didn't have,
right.
yeah.
And more people are being exonerated because of DNA.
Right.
So you think about, especially in the Deep South, in those time periods, how many men and women went to jail on bogus charges? You know, so
or they, like we said, pled down to something else.
You just play. And you know what? Before we finish, I'm thinking about a case, and I think we've talked about this before, where the guy went to jail on a bogus charge. Eventually it was found that it was a bogus charge, but while he was in jail, he killed somebody.
So he
remember that?
Caught more charges, yep.
Right. So it's like,
that should be a wash, though, if you ask me. So here, I'm going to just leave you all with this. This is how my brain works. And if you prosecute me, misprosecute me, or maliciously prosecute me, whatever the punishment is that I've done, so let's say I do 1 year in jail. I want you dead. Let's say I do 10 years in jail. I want your entire family dead. Prosecutor, your wife, your kids. It sounds fucked up, but I'm for real.
You want the whole generation.
Yeah, like much like I said about the Snickers bar. Like, okay, yeah, 10 years for a Snickers bar. That'll like get people to stop trying to sniff.
Basically, it's the shock and awe.
Yeah,
version of justice.
There's so many people they don't accountability.
Right.
Like as citizens, we're supposed to be accountable for our actions. Police are not accountable for their actions.
True.
The
prosecution.
Yeah, district attorney, like the whole judicial system, nobody is accountable. These judges aren't accountable.
Damn straight.
So
I can 100% agree with you on that.
What we need to do is, if you fuck up, you die.
Well, I'm saying this. Not so much you die, but and
your family die.
I do believe, I will agree with you about being accountable. And that's the issue. And that is the issue that we talk about a lot, because the judicial system is broken. It is. And I can admit to it being broken. We need to fix it. And we've offered solutions other than wiping out you and your whole family. But
give them AIDS.
I mean, we've talked about viable solutions to fixing. But the thing is, what I've come to the realization of, as with any of our other systems that are broken, like the welfare system in our country, it is broken. Like,
what makes you say that?
I'm sorry?
What makes you say the welfare system is broken?
Because it's so easily subverted. Because it's so easy. I mean, we just talked about a friend who's on Medicaid.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay. It's so easily, as I said,
it's
subverted. It's so easily manipulated. Our systems are broken. They need fixing. But those broken systems, and I don't think it is a coincidence that these systems that are broken inordinately, disproportionately affect people of color. That is not a coincidence.
My thing with the whole welfare system being broken is, yeah, we know people, and I'm sure we all know people, y'all listening, who I know you know where to go buy some food stamps, or we talked about that, or you know how to get around, like we said, Medicaid or housing vouchers, shit like that. But there's a line where, and this has always been my thing because I grew up on public assistance, is where do we stop as far as punishing or making it more difficult for the people who actually need it versus trying to, weed out what is this? Like, I think it's
The freeloaders.
10%, around give or take 8 to 10%.
actually-
Yeah. So we can do a lot to overhaul and make it more difficult, but that affects families. And my biggest thing is, I don't really care, and I say this a lot, I don't care much about the adults. It's once it starts
children.
affecting the children, these
Right.
children aren't eating,
But-
these children.
But think about this. Just practically. How many times have you tried to overhaul this system?
Clinton did. That's the last I remember.
It's like we don't really try to overhaul it, because the minute that you start trying, and all Clinton did was that whole welfare to work thing.
Right.
And how did that go over? It didn't. And honestly, every time we try to overhaul the system, there's this massive pushback.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I've said it before. You said it before. I believe Becky said it before. The government needs Black and brown people to be on welfare.
Yeah.
They do.
Well,
I mean,
100%.
Right. It's like there is no incentive. They don't want us off.
Yeah, you make that, and that's like we talked about in an episode prior. You make, in New Orleans, and this is actually true because I was talking to somebody from who has lived here their whole life, and they've worked in the welfare system as far as with the state and whatnot. It's generational.
Yes, it is.
To where your grandma was on welfare.
Yep.
Your mom was on welfare.
Yep.
You're on welfare.
Yep.
More than likely, your children are going to be on welfare,
Correct.
so on and so forth, right?
And you find nothing wrong with that. And we've talked about that before. And as your grandmother, I'm going to tell you how you do it.
How you game the system,
exactly right.
But the thing is, and I said this in the last episode about as far as solutions, violent crimes and stuff, is paying people livable wages. See, if I hear a lot of people talk shit about, like, oh, McDonald's workers want $15 an hour and this and that. Let's just throw the dollar number aside and say, for whatever city you're living in, there's a
pay me a wage that allows me to clothe, shelter, and feed myself and my family.
Right.
I don't want to live in a penthouse.
I do.
I'm just saying, I don't want enough money that I'm living in a penthouse, but I want enough money that I can live in a place that I'm proud to live in.
Yeah.
That I'm not living in a place where there's litter all over the place. They may have broken, I don't want to live in a rat trap. I don't want my children to live in a rat trap.
And also, as far as living somewhere you're proud of, it helps to go work somewhere that you're proud to be. So it's like, if you paid, and a lot of companies, they like, hell no. But at the end of the day, us as employees, I'm an employee, Ann's an employee, Becky's an employee. And I'm sure if you're not an employee, you have been at some point. For those of you listening, we are the ones collectively who make you money as far as these companies and corporations. We're the ones. Without us, you have nothing.
Multi-billion dollar companies.
Amazon, Jeff Bezos can't do that shit by himself.
Yeah, the thing is, I can honestly say from everything that I've heard about Amazon doing the damn thing. You know what I'm saying? Amazon actually pays their workers.
No, they treat their workers like shit. Becky's mother worked for Amazon.
I don't know, man. From people that I've heard, they love Amazon.
The drivers, I can tell you, the people that are driving those new Mercedes-Benz Amazon things, yeah, they love their jobs. But the people that work at these warehouses, they have these strict guidelines to where you need to pick or pull X amount of packages per so long, and it's almost to the point where these goals are unattainable. Becky, what was it with your situation as far as your mama?
Well, with Amazon, it was a temporary position.
Thanks.
No, but he's trying to figure out what is it that she had to do that she said.
She was a picker.
Yeah.
Basically.
So she said that the goals that they wanted her to meet were
She didn't tell me about
insane.
any of that.
You didn't?
No.
Okay. Well, I have heard from multiple people. So, and one of the things, they have this big warehouse in Texas, right?
Mm-hmm.
They will not allow you. This might have changed, so forgive me if I have outdated information, but they won't allow you to listen to music. So you're basically in a warehouse. You're walking back and forth and picking boxes. Can't have music. You can't have jewelry. You can't have your cell phone. You can't have your Apple Watch or any wearable devices. And things like that actually can help productivity if you're working physical labor. But you're supposed to pull, I'm making this number up, 100 packages every
An
hour.
hour.
And you're in a 80,000 square foot warehouse where one thing's over here, one thing's over here. That's one order. So you go get those two things, you bring it back, you process it. Now you have to go pick 6 things that are, it's like, it's just so unrealistic. And I know the person that I talked to said the turnover rate was crazy.
Massive.
Yeah, because these goals couldn't be met. They wouldn't fire you, but you would be disciplined in other ways to where it basically made it to where you just don't want to come to work anymore.
Right.
But the drivers, I talked to some of the drivers because I was interested in doing that shit part-time. Just jump in one of that shit and go through packages. They love it.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the people that I've never talked to people working in the warehouse. But okay, so go back to what we were talking about, compensation statutes. And I mentioned that there were 17 states that did not have these statutes. I apologize. There are actually 15 states. By the way, the federal government does have a compensation statute, and a District of Columbia does have a compensation statute. There are 15 states that do not. And those states are Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, Delaware,
All the A's. Okay.
Georgia, Idaho, Kentucky, New Mexico, North Dakota, Oregon, Pennsylvania. Well, I be damn. Rhode Island, South Carolina, South Dakota, and Wyoming. So literally, you go to jail, wrongfully convicted, you later get exonerated.
Nada.
Out of luck, bro.
See?
That list seems like a patchwork. Like generally
It's
states kind
everywhere.
of yeah.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, if your state does not, if you're in one of these states, you should petition. I mean, what can people do? Petition,
Maryland as well. They do not have a form of compensation.
petition their Congress people, their senators. I don't know.
Yes, absolutely. If you like in the case of the 3 young men who were exonerated, I believe the district attorney, let me see. The district attorney who the current district attorney that the Baltimore City state's attorney, she is actually now petitioning to have a formal, like, City of Baltimore has apologized, but
Oh, that's good enough then. Well, they good, huh?
apologized. So even though they've apologized, like I said, there's no apology that can compensate for that. But Maryland does not have a formal statute that guarantees compensation. From what I understand, though, they could be compensated, but that's at the largest of whomever. It's like,
Yeah.
I can ask for it.
Maybe I'll think about giving it to
Maybe
you.
I'll get it, maybe I won't. But with a formal statute something that the law says you have to compensate these people for, you can get it. And so, as I said, there are states out there that do
Petition.
not have that. Congress
Petition.
people do listen if enough of us make enough noise.
And I want to end on this note here. And it's going to seem irrelevant until I get to the point. I have a hard time with watching kids these days. They're tied up in technology. They're in the house all summer playing their video games. They're, on their phones, Instagram. Some of them, they're pretty creative. They'll do like little skits and stuff for the internet, but most of their lives are lived digitally and indoors, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've always had a problem with that. I'm like, kids should be outside. They should be active. They should be doing shit. And maybe that's just the old fashioned in me, but I think it teaches life skills in doing so. How to interact with other people, how not to be so isolated. We're living in this era that we're in now. These people are like the most isolated people have ever been. And coming from a person who is isolated, I can tell you that a lot of these motherfuckers online, on Instagram, that look like they're living it up, they're fucking lonely. They're in the house all the time. And the reason I say all that is to say, though I take issue with it, it also keeps these kids out of jail. Because it was nothing for us in my day to be playing football in the middle of the street or playing tag, playing in the neighborhood. Police roll up and harass us, arrest us. And like I said, we'll get charged with something and then leave with a lesser charge or whatever. So it's like there's a benefit to this digital age, which is you're off the streets, so to speak. But it's like I feel like y'all need to be out there in the streets.
But I don't know if I agree with that whole isolation thing. I think
people are fucking lonely, man.
But you know what? You can be lonely surrounded by a group of people.
I often am.
All right. So, but I consider, and the way I look at it, things like Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, they tend to actually shrink our world because they allow us to see people or interact with people that we would not normally be able to interact with because we are in different places. Now
that
I can
expands the world then.
Right. It does. So that's why, but I can see your point as far as if all I'm doing is sitting in a room with my phone or with my tablet or with my computer, and the only people that I am connecting to are people online who I don't really know if these people or who and what they say they are, but still, like I said, it expands your circle of people that you speak with. So I don't know about that whole isolationist thing. I don't know about the whole, but even though children still be out playing. It didn't hurt us. And the cops might have harassed us, but then too, this is a different day and time.
Yeah.
And the
Tamir
cops,
Rice.
the cops the cops of old are not like the policemen of today.
The internet, right? That's actually okay. So I was saying on A Few Screws Loose, right? I don't even consider me having a circle as far as friends. I consider it more or less a triangle or maybe a rectangle. So
octagon.
Yeah, something, not as, but I interact daily with dozens of people on Twitter because that's the only socializing that I do outside of people that I legit know. And in watching social media, I can see when people are doing shit for attention. I can see when people are just, it's like some of these people like under 30, they grew up with social media. Like they've had social media, maybe not 30, let's say 25.
Most of their lives.
Right.
Mhm.
So that is a way of life. So the more followers, the more likes, the more this, that, and the other. And then you got the cyberbullying. Like, people take this shit serious
Mhm.
if somebody unfollows you. Like, that even makes news when that shit happens with celebrities. So and so unfollowed some. Who gives a fuck, man? These people are like, it's like you have to be a lonely motherfucker to give a fuck about shit like people unfollowing you.
Well, you know, but that's because
People who you don't know.
But that goes back to what I said about being able to interact with people that you otherwise wouldn't. And so, you know, your theory about isolationism, that is their form of communication. So
That's
they
the lunchroom, yeah.
But think about it. When we have people that we know, our friends, we want validation from them, right?
People that we know. Yes.
Right.
Me?
So
wait, why you ain't ask me?
shut up. We do. I mean, it's human nature to seek validation from someone that you like.
True, but I think people are using that too sensitively because anybody can be my friend.
Right. But
And then they're taking it to another level by monetizing it.
Well, if my only friend and my only circle of friends are the ones on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, if that is my friend base, then I need my validation from my friends. So yeah, it's gonna mess me up if I'm trying to get validated by these people and they ain't liking me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that's why Instagram took away the likes, so people can't see like how many likes you get on stuff. And I don't know, I just think social media plays too large of a role in people's lives.
that's this millennial generation. I mean, social
I'm
media.
a millennial.
Social media, it's their lives.
And I saw this tweet too. This is it. We're wrapping up right here because this 20-minute episode is only an hour and 23
Stop
minutes.
playing.
Oh my God.
I saw a tweet that says, baby boomers and all you older motherfuckers, stop calling everybody younger than you a millennial. It's like everybody that's younger than me, period, is a millennial. No, there's an age range, and I want to say it's from like 22 to 38 or something like that. So technically, I'm a millennial. I don't associate myself with someone who's 22, 23, 24 or whatever the lower age range was. But it's like these people call everyone who is younger than their like 50s or whatever millennials. I just thought I'd say that. So this has been another 20-minute episode.
I just thought I said this could be a 20-minute episode if you chopped it into two.
It's too hard to do that and have cohesion.
Oh.
Cohesion, man.
Cohesion.
So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, check us out every social media platform at Black Law Podcast. I am Dan. You can find me on Twitter and IG at I am Dan on Drugs. Merch.
This has been another amazing episode of Black Law and Legal Eyes. You've been hosted by me, Afro Becky.
Oh, they've been hosted by you?
They've been hosted. You heard that? And I'm just Dan. And I'm glad that you took the time to be hosted by Retarded Titty Becky.
RTB.
Oh, yeah, and follow me on Twitter at I Tell Legal Lies.
Did you know in that episode that you missed, did you know that a woman can milk a man, right?
Excuse me?
Did you know that a woman can milk a man?
You have man boobs?
I'm not. I'm asking. Do you know if
you
can milk that
you can milk
woman,
their sperm?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So go back and listen to that. I'm telling you, listen to that episode because Becky was talking about how she milks me.